English Listening Podcast. TOEIC 900 points. Chapter 1. Corporate Governance and Strategic Leadership. The intricate interplay between corporate governance mechanisms and organizational performance continues to captivate scholars and practitioners alike, with empirical evidence suggesting that robust governance frameworks substantially mitigate agency costs while enhancing shareholder value creation. Board composition warrants meticulous consideration, as the juxtaposition of inside directors' operational insights against outside directors' objectivity establishes the foundation for effective strategic oversight and executive accountability. The proliferation of institutional investors wielding considerable voting power has precipitated heightened scrutiny of executive compensation structures, particularly regarding the alignment between remuneration packages and sustainable long-term performance metrics. Corporate bylaws delineating clear separation of the chairperson and chief executive roles have gained traction as exemplary practice, notwithstanding persistent counterarguments advocating consolidated leadership during transformational periods. Activist shareholders increasingly leverage proxy contests to catalyze strategic redirections or governance reforms when incumbent management demonstrates recalcitrance toward addressing persistent underperformance or misalignment with shareholder interests. Fiduciary obligations compel directors to exercise duty of care and loyalty in their deliberations, necessitating thorough due diligence regarding material decisions while subordinating personal interests to organizational welfare. Stakeholder capitalism has gained prominence as a governance philosophy, contending that corporations bear responsibility toward a broader ecosystem including employees, communities, suppliers, and environmental stewardship beyond shareholder primacy. Nominating committees implement rigorous director selection protocols incorporating skills matrices to ensure board composition encompasses requisite expertise in finance, industry knowledge, risk management, and technological acumen. The Sarbanes-Oxley legislation revolutionized corporate accountability through mandating enhanced internal controls, independent audit committees, executive certification of financial statements, and whistleblower protection mechanisms. Succession planning constitutes a critical board function, encompassing leadership development pipelines, emergency contingency arrangements, and systematic evaluation of internal candidates against external talent pools. Corporate governance ratings by independent advisory services have acquired substantial influence over institutional investment allocations, compelling publicly traded entities to proactively address governance deficiencies before shareholder activism materializes. Environmental, social, and governance (ESG) integration into corporate strategy transcends mere compliance or reputation management, increasingly recognized as instrumental to long-term value creation through risk mitigation and opportunity identification. Shareholder derivative litigation presents a formidable accountability mechanism enabling stockholders to pursue claims on behalf of the corporation when leadership fails to address alleged breaches of fiduciary duty. Director and officer liability insurance premiums have escalated dramatically, reflecting heightened personal exposure amid proliferating shareholder litigation and regulatory enforcement actions targeting individual accountability. Board evaluations encompassing both collective functionality and individual director contributions have evolved from perfunctory exercises into substantive assessments, with tangible consequences for committee assignments and renomination prospects. Corporate governance codes across jurisdictions increasingly advocate, comply, or explain approaches balancing regulatory standardization against organizational flexibility, acknowledging the impracticality of universal governance prescriptions across diverse industry contexts. Chapter 2. Macroeconomic Analysis and Global Market Dynamics. Macroeconomic indicators furnish invaluable insights regarding economic trajectories, though their interpretation demands nuanced consideration of methodological limitations, revision frequencies, and contextual factors influencing apparent trends. Monetary policy transmission mechanisms operate through multiple channels including interest rate adjustments, asset prices, credit availability, and exchange rate fluctuations, with varying efficacy across different economic structures and financial system architectures. Yield curve inversions historically presage recessionary conditions with remarkable consistency, though debate persists regarding whether this predictive relationship reflects causation through banking sector profitability compression or merely correlates with underlying economic vulnerabilities. Quantitative easing initiatives have fundamentally transformed central banking operations through large-scale asset purchases designed to suppress long-term interest rates when conventional policy tools encounter zero lower bound constraints, though their distributional consequences remain contentious. Secular stagnation hypotheses posit structural impediments to sustainable growth, including demographic headwinds, technological displacement of labor, wealth inequality, and excessive debt accumulation, potentially necessitating perpetual fiscal stimulus and accommodative monetary policy. Fiscal multiplier effects vary considerably depending on economic conditions, with expansionary government spending generating heightened output impacts during recessionary periods characterized by monetary accommodation and substantial economic slack. Currency manipulation allegations frequently emerge during periods of significant trade imbalances, though distinguishing between legitimate monetary sovereignty and deliberate exchange rate suppression remains problematic absent international consensus regarding permissible intervention parameters. Productivity growth constitutes the fundamental determinant of long-term living standards, yet its measurement presents formidable challenges, particularly regarding quality improvements, new product introductions, and service sector outputs lacking straightforward quantification methodologies. Inflation expectations exert profound influence over price formation processes, with expectation anchoring representing a critical prerequisite for monetary policy effectiveness, particularly within inflation targeting frameworks predicated on central bank credibility. Financial stability concerns have achieved prominence alongside traditional monetary policy objectives following the global financial crisis, prompting development of macroprudential regulatory tools addressing systemic vulnerabilities rather than merely institution-specific risk profiles. Supply chain disruptions arising from geopolitical tensions, natural disasters, or public health emergencies can precipitate inflationary pressures through input scarcity and production bottlenecks despite accommodative demand conditions. Current account imbalances reflect divergent saving and investment relationships across nations, though persistent deficits may signal underlying competitiveness challenges or unsustainable consumption, patterns potentially requiring eventual adjustment through currency depreciation or domestic demand compression. Economic complexity metrics measuring productive knowledge diversification and interconnectedness within national economies correlate strongly with development outcomes, suggesting capability accumulation rather than mere factor endowments determines prosperity trajectories. Chapter 3: Disruptive Innovation and Digital Transformation. The pervasive diffusion of exponential technologies has precipitated unprecedented organizational transformation imperatives, compelling incumbents to fundamentally reconsider value propositions, operational modalities, and customer engagement paradigms. Disruptive innovation theory elucidates how ostensibly inferior offerings targeting overlooked market segments can systematically evolve to displace established solutions, particularly when mainstream providers overshoot customer requirements while pursuing higher margin segments. Platform business models leverage powerful network effects through facilitating value-creating interactions between producers and consumers, with successful orchestrators capturing disproportionate value through transaction facilitation rather than direct production. Artificial intelligence applications traversing natural language processing, computer vision, and predictive analytics are transcending rule-based automation to enable cognitive capabilities previously requiring human intelligence, though significant limitations persist regarding contextual understanding and causal reasoning. Digital transformation transcends mere technology implementation to encompass fundamental reconfiguration of organizational structures, talent models, cultural attributes, and leadership approaches congruent with accelerated innovation cycles and heightened competitive intensity. Agile methodologies originally conceived for software development have evolved into comprehensive management philosophies predicated on iterative delivery, cross-functional collaboration, and continuous customer feedback incorporation throughout product development processes. Legacy system modernization presents formidable challenges for established organizations, necessitating intricate technical migrations while maintaining operational continuity and preserving mission-critical functionality embedded within outdated architecture. Big data analytics initiatives frequently falter not from technological limitations, but organizational impediments including fragmented data ownership, quality deficiencies, governance ambiguities, and analytical talent scarcity across business functions. Blockchain implementations, beyond cryptocurrency applications, offer potential for transformative impact through distributed consensus mechanisms, eliminating intermediary requirements across various transaction types requiring immutable record-keeping with cryptographic verification. Customer experience orchestration across omnichannel touchpoints necessitates seamless integration between digital interfaces and physical environments, demanding sophisticated customer data platforms enabling contextually relevant personalization while navigating evolving privacy constraints. Quantum computing offers exponential computational capacity for specific problem classes, including optimization challenges, cryptographic operations, and molecular simulations, potentially rendering currently intractable calculations feasible though widespread commercial applications remain distant. Augmented reality deployments in industrial contexts enhance worker productivity through contextual information overlay and remote expert guidance, while virtual reality enables immersive training environments replicating hazardous or rare scenarios without physical risk exposure. Chapter 4: Environmental Sustainability and Corporate Responsibility. Corporate sustainability initiatives have progressively evolved from peripheral philanthropy or compliance obligations toward strategic imperatives intrinsically linked with competitive advantage through operational efficiency, innovation potential, reputation enhancement, and long-term resilience. Circular economy principles fundamentally challenge linear consumption models through systematic approaches to material flow management, product design optimization, and business model innovation, preserving embedded resource value while decoupling economic growth from finite resource extraction. Science-based emission reduction targets align corporate climate commitments with atmospheric greenhouse gas concentration trajectories consistent with Paris Agreement objectives, thereby establishing credible pathways toward decarbonization commensurate with planetary boundaries. Natural capital accounting methodologies attempt to quantify ecosystem service dependencies and environmental externalities conventionally excluded from financial statements, enabling more comprehensive risk assessment and strategic decision-making regarding resource utilization. Transition risk exposure varies substantially across sectors as policy interventions, technological disruption, and consumer preferences increasingly favor low-carbon alternatives, with stranded asset potential particularly acute for fossil fuel reserves, emission-intensive infrastructure, and products incompatible with climate stabilization pathways. Supply chain sustainability management extends environmental and social responsibility beyond organizational boundaries through supplier code implementation, traceability mechanisms, capacity-building initiatives, and collaborative industry standards addressing systemic challenges exceeding individual company influence. Biodiversity conservation has acquired heightened corporate attention as ecosystem service dependencies become more apparent, regulatory scrutiny intensifies, and scientific consensus regarding biodiversity collapse consequences solidifies into material business considerations. Carbon pricing mechanisms, whether implemented through taxation or cap-and-trade systems, internalize previously externalized climate costs, thereby altering investment economics and incentivizing abatement measures in accordance with cost-effectiveness principles. The proliferation of sustainability reporting frameworks, including Global Reporting Initiative Standards, Sustainability Accounting Standards Board metrics, and Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures recommendations, reflects evolving stakeholder expectations regarding environmental transparency, though harmonization efforts continue addressing fragmentation concerns. Regenerative agriculture practices incorporating cover cropping, minimal tillage, rotational grazing, and reduced chemical inputs can sequester substantial carbon while enhancing soil health, water retention, and biodiversity, presenting compelling opportunities for agricultural supply chain transformation. Corporate water stewardship extends beyond efficiency measures to incorporate watershed-level collaboration, recognizing that water security represents a shared challenge transcending individual withdrawal reductions when operating within stressed basins. Renewable energy procurement strategies have expanded beyond conventional power purchase agreements to include virtual contracts, energy attribute certificates, on-site generation, and community solar participation, offering versatile approaches to decarbonization aligned with organizational circumstances. Chapter 5: Consumer Behavior and Experiential Marketing. Consumer decision journeys have undergone profound transformation amid proliferating information sources, evaluation channels, and purchase pathways, necessitating sophisticated understanding of nonlinear progression through awareness, consideration, evaluation, purchase, and post-purchase phases. Behavioral economics has revolutionized traditional consumer analysis by illuminating systematic cognitive biases including loss aversion, present bias, choice overload, and status quo preference that frequently contradict rational utility maximization assumptions underlying conventional economic theories. Psychographic segmentation transcends demographic classification to incorporate lifestyle characteristics, values orientation, and personality attributes, enabling more nuanced understanding of attitudinal drivers and emotional responses underlying observable consumption behaviors. Neuromarketing techniques, including electroencephalography, functional magnetic resonance imaging, and biometric tracking, provide unprecedented physiological insights regarding subconscious consumer responses to marketing stimuli, though ethical considerations regarding manipulation potential warrant careful consideration. Customer lifetime value modeling integrates acquisition costs, retention probabilities, purchase frequency, margin contribution, and referral value to quantify long-term customer relationships, enabling more sophisticated resource allocation decisions regarding segment-specific marketing investments. Experiential marketing orchestrates multisensory brand touchpoints designed to evoke emotional connections through immersive environments, interactive elements, and memorable moments, recognizing that distinctive experiences frequently prove more defensible than functional attributes in contemporary competitive landscapes. The paradox of choice suggests that excessive options can diminish consumer satisfaction through decision paralysis and anticipated regret, indicating that assortment optimization may counterintuitively require thoughtful constraint rather than unlimited proliferation. Zero moment of truth concepts acknowledge that pre-purchase digital research increasingly determines consideration sets before physical retail engagement, shifting competitive battlegrounds toward digital visibility, content quality, and recommendation algorithms. Conspicuous consumption theory elucidates status signaling functions underlying luxury acquisition, with evolving manifestations, including inconspicuous consumption, emphasizing subtle cultural capital among certain segments, and conscious consumption, prioritizing sustainability credentials rather than mere ostentation. Cognitive dissonance frequently emerges following significant purchases as consumers unconsciously seek confirmation regarding decision correctness while minimizing attention to foregone alternatives, highlighting the importance of post-purchase communication reinforcing choice wisdom. Sensory marketing leverages tactile, olfactory, auditory, visual, and gustatory dimensions to create distinctive brand associations operating below conscious awareness, yet powerfully influencing preference formation and memory encoding. Customer journey orchestration increasingly leverages predictive analytics and marketing automation to deliver personalized interventions precisely when consumers demonstrate behavioral indicators of specific needs or decision progression, balancing relevance against privacy considerations. Chapter 6: Strategic Risk Management and Organizational Resilience. Enterprise risk management frameworks facilitate systematic identification, assessment, and prioritization of multifaceted threats and opportunities across operational, financial, strategic, and compliance dimensions, enabling coherent resource allocation aligned with organizational risk appetite. Scenario planning transcends conventional forecasting through structured exploration of plausible alternative futures, incorporating discontinuous change possibilities, thereby enhancing strategic flexibility and contingency preparation despite fundamental uncertainty regarding environmental evolution. Emerging risk radar functions systematically monitor weak signals, potentially foreshadowing disruptive developments through horizon scanning, trend analysis, and early warning indicators, enabling preemptive adaptation rather than reactive crisis management. Operational resilience encompasses redundancy incorporation, rapid reconfiguration capability, and effective response protocols, enabling critical function maintenance despite severe disruptions. Recognizing that comprehensive risk prevention proves impossible amid escalating complexity and interconnectedness. Cognitive biases, including availability heuristics, confirmation tendencies, and groupthink, frequently undermine effective risk assessment, necessitating structured debiasing techniques including premortem exercises, devil's advocacy, and diverse analytical perspectives to challenge prevailing assumptions. Tail risk management addresses low probability, high-consequence events traditionally neglected by conventional risk models, employing normal distributions, inadequately capturing fataled phenomena, where catastrophic potentialities warrant disproportionate attention despite statistical rarity. Dynamic risk quantification methodologies incorporate interdependencies, nonlinear relationships, and feedback loops characterizing complex systems, acknowledging limitations of static models, presuming independent probabilities and additive consequences across risk categories. Third-party risk management has acquired heightened significance amid complex supply networks and extensive outsourcing arrangements, recognizing that organizational resilience depends substantially on external entity performance during disruption scenarios. Business continuity planning establishes predetermined response protocols, clear accountability structures, alternative operational arrangements, and recovery procedures enabling rapid stabilization following disruptive incidents, with regular simulation exercises validating effectiveness under realistic conditions. Concentration risk manifests across multiple dimensions, including geographic footprints, supplier dependencies, customer portfolios, and technological platforms, with excessive consolidation potentially optimizing efficiency during normal conditions while introducing catastrophic vulnerability during specific disruption scenarios. Strategic risk encompasses threats to fundamental business model viability through technological obsolescence, regulatory paradigm shifts, customer preference evolution, and competitive landscape transformation, requiring board-level engagement transcending operational risk delegation. Reputational risk quantification presents methodological challenges regarding monetary impact estimation, triggering event probability assessment, and temporal damage trajectories, yet constitutes essential analysis given potential existential consequences arising from severe trust impairment among key stakeholders. Chapter 7: Workplace Ergonomics and Occupational Health Optimization. Comprehensive ergonomic interventions transcend equipment modification to encompass holistic work system design integrating spatial configurations, task organization, temporal patterns, and psychosocial factors affecting employee well-being and productivity. Musculoskeletal disorder prevention necessitates multifaceted approaches addressing biomechanical stressors through workstation adjustability, neutral posture facilitation, force requirement minimization, and movement variability incorporation throughout workday sequences. Cognitive ergonomics examines mental workload dynamics, information processing requirements, decision complexity, and attention allocation, patterns to optimize interfaces, procedures, and environments supporting cognitive performance while mitigating fatigue and error potential. Organizational ergonomics evaluates structural elements including communication channels, collaboration mechanisms, authority distributions, and incentive systems that significantly influence individual workstation ergonomics through establishing implicit performance expectations and behavioral norms. Participatory ergonomics engages workers directly in hazard identification and solution development, recognizing that effective interventions require both technical expertise and practical contextual understanding, uniquely available through frontline personnel involvement. Objective assessment methodologies incorporating electromyography, motion capture technology, and postural analysis algorithms complement subjective discomfort reporting to identify subtle strain patterns before symptomatic manifestation occurs. Circadian rhythm alignment represents an increasingly significant occupational health consideration as flexible work arrangements, global collaboration requirements, and 24-hour operational demands potentially disrupt natural sleep-wake cycles with consequent performance and health implications. Psychosocial risk factors including excessive workload, limited autonomy, insufficient recognition, inadequate support, and poor leadership quality contribute substantially to occupational stress manifestations, potentially exceeding physical hazard impacts in contemporary knowledge work environments. Sedentary behavior mitigation strategies acknowledge mounting evidence regarding cardiometabolic risks associated with prolonged sitting, independent from moderate-to physical activity levels during non-work hours. Standing desk implementation warrants nuanced consideration regarding appropriate work task suitability, gradual acclimation protocols, and supportive flooring surfaces, recognizing that static standing introduces distinct physiological challenges rather than representing universal improvement over seated postures. Workplace intervention effectiveness evaluation requires comprehensive metrics transcending immediate symptom reduction to encompass productivity impacts, absenteeism patterns, presenteeism mitigation, compensation costs, and intervention sustainability beyond initial implementation periods. Aging workforce demographics necessitate adaptive ergonomic approaches, accommodating changing physiological capabilities, including reduced visual acuity, altered strength-to-body weight ratios, and modified recovery timeframes, while leveraging valuable experiential knowledge and institutional memory. Chapter 8: Integrated Marketing Communications and Consumer Engagement. Integrated marketing communications synchronize messaging across proliferating touchpoints through consistent strategic positioning, visual identity cohesion, and complementary tactical execution, recognizing that fragmented exposure patterns necessitate seamless experience delivery regardless of initial engagement channel. Attribution modeling methodologies attempt to allocate conversion credit across multiple marketing interactions throughout customer journeys, though persistent challenges regarding cross-device tracking, online-offline integration, and incrementality assessment complicate accurate contribution determination. Content marketing effectiveness increasingly depends on sophisticated audience segmentation, personalization capabilities, and distribution optimization rather than mere production volume, with successful organizations developing systematic processes for identifying informational needs throughout purchase consideration stages. Programmatic advertising platforms leverage artificial intelligence for real-time bidding across digital inventory, incorporating contextual relevance, audience behavioral patterns, and conversion likelihood predictions to optimize impression acquisition efficiency. Influencer marketing authenticity concerns have prompted more sophisticated partnership selection emphasizing genuine audience alignment, transparent disclosure practices, and long-term relationship development beyond transactional endorsements. Marketing mix modeling employs econometric techniques to isolate marketing intervention impacts from baseline sales patterns, seasonality effects, competitive activities, and macroeconomic factors, enabling more informed budget allocation decisions across channels. Consumer privacy regulation proliferation, including General Data Protection Regulation and California Consumer Privacy Act, has fundamentally reshaped digital marketing practices through explicit consent requirements, data minimization principles, and enhanced transparency obligations regarding information collection and utilization. Neuroaesthetics research elucidates subconscious processing of visual elements, including color psychology, compositional balance, facial recognition patterns, and processing fluency dynamics, providing scientific foundation for design decisions traditionally guided by subjective aesthetic judgment. Share of voice metrics retain relevance within integrated measurement frameworks despite fragmented media landscapes, though sophisticated analysis now incorporates sentiment analysis, message penetration, and competitive positioning dimensions beyond mere exposure volume. Customer advocacy mobilization acknowledges that genuinely enthusiastic customers represent uniquely credible ambassadors when properly equipped with compelling content, sharing mechanisms, and recognition systems, acknowledging their contribution to organizational success. Augmented reality marketing applications transform passive consumption into interactive experiences through virtual product trials, educational visualizations, gamified promotions, and location-based activations, bridging physical and digital realms. Chapter 9: Financial Derivatives and Investment Portfolio Management. Derivative instruments including options, futures, swaps, and forwards serve multiple functions within sophisticated investment strategies, facilitating risk transfer, price discovery, portfolio efficiency enhancement, and speculative positioning based on specific market expectations. Option pricing models incorporate underlying asset volatility, time decay characteristics, interest rate environments, and dividend expectations to determine theoretical valuations, though implied volatility discrepancies frequently signal divergent market sentiment regarding future price movement potential. Portfolio optimization techniques balance expected return maximization against volatility minimization through efficient frontier analysis, recognizing that diversification benefits derive fundamentally from correlation structures rather than merely holding numerous securities without consideration of interrelationships. Active management value propositions face mounting scrutiny amid persistent evidence regarding performance persistence challenges, fee compounding effects, and efficient market hypothesis implications, though specific market segments demonstrating informational inefficiencies may justify active approaches. Alternative investment allocations including private equity, venture capital, hedge funds, real estate, and infrastructure projects potentially enhance risk-adjusted portfolio performance through accessing illiquidity premiums, inefficient markets, and diversifying return streams with reduced correlation to traditional asset classes. Factor investing strategies systematically target specific return drivers including value, momentum, quality, size, and low volatility characteristics, representing middle ground approaches between purely passive indexing and discretionary active management relying on manager skill. Environmental, social, and governance integration methodologies span negative screening, positive selection, thematic concentration, and impact investing approaches, with mounting evidence suggesting that material sustainability factors correlate significantly with financial performance rather than necessarily representing return sacrifices. Fixed income portfolio construction requires nuanced duration management, yield curve positioning, credit quality assessment, and sector rotation decisions responsive to monetary policy trajectories, inflation expectations, and credit cycle evolution. Sovereign wealth funds wielding substantial assets under management significantly influence global capital markets through strategic allocation decisions, though operational approaches vary considerably regarding transparency levels, liability matching requirements, and national strategic alignment beyond purely financial objectives. Risk parity approaches allocate portfolio capital according to risk contribution rather than nominal exposure, typically increasing leverage applied to lower volatility asset classes while reducing allocation to higher volatility components to achieve more balanced risk distribution. Tactical asset allocation strategies temporarily deviate from strategic benchmarks based on medium-term market outlook assessments, though implementation effectiveness depends on both directional accuracy and appropriate magnitude determination in positioning adjustments. Behavioral finance insights regarding market anomalies stemming from cognitive biases, institutional constraints, and principal agent problems potentially generate exploitable opportunities for investors recognizing systematic mispricings arising from non-rational participant behaviors. Chapter 10: Organizational Development and Human Capital Optimization. Organizational development interventions facilitate systemic transformation through evidence-based methodologies addressing structural configurations, process optimization, cultural attributes, and leadership effectiveness, rather than merely targeting symptomatic manifestations of deeper dysfunctions. Psychological safety constitutes the fundamental prerequisite for innovation cultures, enabling candid discourse, constructive dissent, failure tolerance, and experimental mindsets essential for adaptation amid uncertainty without fear of interpersonal repercussions. Diversity and inclusion initiatives increasingly transcend representation metrics to address belonging experiences, psychological safety variations across identity groups, structural inclusion barriers, and cognitive diversity, leveraging for enhanced decision quality and innovation potential. Talent analytics applications, including predictive attrition modeling, performance driver identification, and skill gap forecasting, inform strategic workforce planning, though ethical implementation requires transparency regarding data utilization and algorithmic decision augmentation versus replacement. Feedback mechanisms require careful calibration regarding frequency, specificity, developmental orientation, and delivery approach, with contemporary organizations increasingly supplementing traditional hierarchical performance reviews with continuous coaching conversations, peer feedback systems, and real-time recognition processes. Organizational network analysis employs relationship mapping methodologies to visualize informal influence patterns, collaboration pathways, information flows, and boundary-spanning connectors, frequently bearing limited resemblance to formal reporting structures, yet exerting profound impact on organizational effectiveness. Employee experience architecture encompasses deliberate design of physical environments, technological interfaces, procedural touchpoints, and cultural elements shaping daily work experiences, recognizing that engagement emerges from holistic perceptions rather than isolated satisfaction drivers. Learning ecosystem development transcends conventional training delivery toward facilitating knowledge flows through communities of practice, mentoring relationships, experiential learning opportunities, and technology-enabled democratized expertise access aligned with performance contexts. Organizational ambidexterity balances exploitation capabilities, optimizing current business models against exploration activities pursuing disruptive innovations, requiring distinct structural arrangements, performance metrics, leadership approaches, and cultural attributes appropriate for each orientation. Change saturation represents an increasingly prevalent organizational challenge as transformation initiatives proliferate concurrently, potentially overwhelming adaptive capacity through competing priorities, initiative fatigue, and insufficient transition time between implementation phases. Leadership development approaches increasingly incorporate vertical development dimensions, addressing cognitive complexity, perspective-taking capacity, and paradoxical thinking capabilities, essential for navigating ambiguity and polarity management beyond merely acquiring additional skills or technical knowledge. Organizational culture transformation requires systematic intervention across artifacts, espoused values, and underlying assumptions, recognizing that superficial adjustments to visible manifestations without addressing deeper belief systems typically generate temporary compliance rather than sustainable behavior change.